Hey, Toy Fair. I am Danielle Hughes. I am the Chief Personality Officer of More Than Words Marketing. And today I'm going to talk you through how you can lure them in with your LinkedIn. And we're going to be talking about how do we get noticed by the right people for the right reasons. So, quick poll, and you can obviously do this to yourself. How comfortable are you with your current LinkedIn profile? Right. One, it's kind of awkward. Two, well, kind of comfortable. You don't hate it. Three, pretty comfortable, but room for improvement. And four, you're a rock star. Most people tend to be two. They think they're three. Um, so I'm just curious. But regardless, by the end of this, the goal is to get you to four, of course, because we all want to be big rock stars. Okay, so let's talk about the game plan for today. I'm going to try to run you through this in like 35 minutes or so. And we're going to talk about the challenges, like what gets in our way. Why is talking about ourselves, writing about ourselves so difficult? I'm going to walk you through some real life examples, some before and after bios. Excuse me. I'm going to talk to you about like some building blocks, like how do we actually build what I call a personality brand? And I will explain why I don't call it a personal brand. And then I'm going to give you some time to get to work after the session, where I'm going to give you some prompts and some downloadables and some things that you can utilize to put this plan into practice. All right, so let's start talking about the challenges, right? So, what question do you fear the most? Um, this is a universal. It's like literally anyone you ask, if you say, what is the most dreaded, hated question? It is, what do you do? Tell me about yourself. And it's crazy because not only not only do we all get asked this question, we are the askers, right? Anytime you meet someone, you're like, what do you do? Tell me about yourself. And yet, for some reason, even though we ask this question, we expect this question, we know it's coming, for most of us, deer in the headlights. We give you our like, longest resume ever, or we don't really say much of anything. Maybe you'll tell someone like your job title, right? But these things are just, meaningless and they don't really answer the question. Because when people ask you, what do you do? Tell me about yourself. What they really want to know is, how did you get into this, right? How did you get started? Give me the origin story. That's the good stuff, right? Why do you do what you do? Um, how do you think? Right? For a lot of us, if we have the same role or the same title as thousands of other people, how we think and like how we approach what we do, that's the differentiator. That's the secret sauce. That is the value to an organization or a team, right? So the more we can get into like, oh, this is how I think, this is how I break things down, this is my approach, the more likely we are to end up in those right roles, in those right environments. What inspires you? Right? Again, like if you can give me like the passionate stuff, like why do you do this? Give me like the inspiration for the work that you do. Those are the things that are super engaging and interesting to another person. And really, what everyone is asking is, what is your story? Like, give me the whole scoop. Like, how did you get here? How did you get into what you do? What is your story? Because that is the thing that allows us to connect. So, speaking of stories, so for me, my story is that I was a copywriter, or am a copywriter. And I spent over a decade in doing what's called ad sales marketing in television. So more traditional broadcasting cable. I was doing all of like, one sheets and media kits, and I was writing content for our sales teams to go out and sell programming. Um, then I was at a small word of mouth marketing agency where I was putting brands in consumers' hands. And I've also done a lot of work in the nonprofit space. So for me, most of my career in writing content was Who am I talking to, and what do they need to hear in order for them to make a decision? And I don't care if you are buying a product with your own money or you are buying airtime with your client's money, you're still making an emotional decision. So everything that we're talking about and everything that I had to write about was like, how do I get somebody to connect to the words and connect to the voice? And what happened was, not quite 10 years ago, I decided to go out on my own. My last couple of jobs just weren't a good fit. And I went out on my own as a generic freelance copywriter, right? Danielle Hughes copywriting. Super generic, super forgettable. And I wasn't doing any marketing and I wasn't really doing any networking. And I realized that I wasn't putting enough of my own personality and my own self into my messaging around my business. And that if I didn't give people something to remember about me, they wouldn't know what to come to me for, right? Coming to someone who's a copywriter, there's so many types of content that you could be writing. There's so many types of audiences you could be speaking to, the industries that you work in. And it's also about like the connection. Again, as a business owner and provider, I need to like get along with my clients. They want to enjoy me. They want to enjoy working with me and vice versa. And if I am not showing them who I am and I'm keeping it all professional, they're not going to remember me. They're not going to enjoy their experience, and we're not going to connect. I'm not going to get to know them, and I'm not going to be able to write on their behalf. But when I was always told, you have to have a personal brand, the word personal means private. So that never connected to me because I thought, why would I be sharing anything private? That's not what allows us to connect to other people. But what allows us to connect to other people is our personality, right? Who we are. To me, we need personality branding in professional spaces. That is, your culture, your background, the food you eat, the hobbies that you have, your passions, the music, the movies, your workout routines, right? All of these things that we do in our free time and all of the things that make us us, that's the personality piece. That's how we build relationships. That's how we foster connection with friends, with coworkers, with clients. And so figuring out how to infuse some of that into how we talk about our professional narrative is the way to connect, advance, and achieve, right? You're not going to move up the ladder if people don't know who you are, right? It's great if you're talented. It's great if you do good work, but that can only get you so far. And you have to marry your ability to connect to other people with your skills. So, really quickly, I always like to say, think about something right now, like something that you love to do that's going to get you super excited. What could you bring into your message? Think about, like for me, I talk about CrossFit and weightlifting. I talk about wine. I'm a big wine aficionado. I'm a podcast person. And the more specific, the better, right? So, like if I just said, oh, I do weightlifting, that's fine. But when I say I do CrossFit, all the CrossFitters are like, yes, girl, let's talk, right? And if I tell people I love wine and it's a specific type of wine, they're more interested. And it's not that you're looking only for people that share these hobbies or passions, but it does start the conversation. You want people to ask you, oh, like you just finished your last marathon. That's so awesome. Tell me more about that. Or, oh, I see that you're really into like folk music or polka dancing or you play the accordion, right? It's got to be something specific, something interesting, and something that's going to get somebody to ask you more questions. And why it matters is because we just can't all be the best, right? I'm not the best copywriter. Most of us watching this, unfortunately, are not the best at what we do, but our differences make us better. Our differences do make us the best for the right environment and the right organization. And that's what we're trying to find is like, where can we allow ourselves to shine so that our differences make us the best? And really quickly, just get this question all the time because people conflate the word professional. They think traditional or conservative is professional, but to professionalism to me, doing a good job, being on time, being respectful, right? Delivering what you've promised. That's just being the professional. The personality piece is like knowing things about your coworkers, asking them how their weekends were, maybe remembering their birthdays, thoughtful things, right? Just being a friendly, warm human is the personality piece. And then the professionalism piece is doing good work, right? And doing what you say you're going to do and following up and, being appreciative and respectful of everyone that you work with. And at the end of the day, no one's going to care more about your job and your career than you. That is just the God's honest truth. And most of us, unfortunately, think, okay, well, then that just means like all this amazing work I do, that's going to, do all the work for me. But as Carla Harris says, your work doesn't speak for itself because your work doesn't speak, right? Your work is not picking itself off your desk and going into your boss's office and shouting from the rooftops, look how awesome I am. You have to do that. And you have to advocate for yourself and you have to find a way to tout your accomplishments. And everything that you're touting is in service, right? This is not, oh, I'm so great and look how great I am. And I. It's look what I have achieved and accomplished and see how beneficial that is to an organization. And that is what I can do for another organization or a client, right? So you are bragging in service. All right, so we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about why LinkedIn matters. For anyone that doesn't know, LinkedIn is the world's largest thought leadership platform. It is not just for job seekers. Even if you have no intention of leaving your current role or organization, you need to be on LinkedIn. This is where you build connection and visibility. It's also where you become an ambassador for your organization. Strong LinkedIn profiles attract talent. And if you showcase that you love your job and you love where you work and you're proud of what you do, not only does that shine a light on your employer, it helps them bring in other talent because everybody is on LinkedIn and everybody is looking. And they are saying, like, oh, who seems happy at this job and who has complete profiles? And if your organization is not saying we want you to have a strong LinkedIn, then something is going on. Because again, this is a way for it to act as a halo for the company. Um, Obviously, when you have a strong profile, you want to showcase your expertise. We want to talk about our accomplishments. We want to highlight the things that are important to us. And it's also a place to like see what's going on in your industry, right? What are the trends? What are people talking about? And how do you get involved in those conversations? How do you share what you think about those things, right? You want to be in the game and you want to be engaged. So, what does some of these kind of compelling profiles and bios look like? It doesn't look like this. So, I'm going to out my friend Jennifer, who came to me. She was the vice president of public policy at MasterCard Canada. And this was her profile. Senior executive with more than 30 years of experience across all aspects of communications and corporate and public affairs. So I'm not even going to read the rest. You can read it, you can pause the video and watch the rest. But here's the thing. If your opening sentence can apply to just about anybody, it is not specific enough to you. There's a lot of senior executives out there. A lot of people have 30 years of experience. A lot of people work in communications and public affairs, right? This could be anybody. I could take Jennifer's name off and put 1,000 other people on here. It doesn't draw you in. It doesn't make you want to read more. And then the rest of it is what I call resume bio jargon salad. It's just a whole bunch of words that don't mean anything that we think we need to slap into our profile in order to show that we understand our industry, when in fact it does the opposite. It shows that we don't know how to talk about ourselves in layman's terms. We don't know how to position ourselves, and nobody's going to read this. And more importantly, if you read this, who is Jennifer? I don't know. She seems boring. She seems like, yeah, great, she's accomplished, but like I don't know what she's ever done. It's a lot of tell and not show. So she's telling us she's decisive and solution oriented and has all this integrity. Why don't you show me? Why don't you give me some examples that highlight that instead? And just so everybody knows, you get 220 characters in your headline, right? So this here, all this tells me is where she works. Again, that doesn't tell me anything about her. And you get 2,600 characters in the about section. So these are places that you can really flesh out who you are as a complete person. So now this is the after, and this is only part of it. There is more if you want to go look her up. She had gotten promoted, right? So not everybody comes to me or like wants to be on LinkedIn because they're looking for a job. She was like, I'm a thought leader. I need to start posting more, and my profile is embarrassing. And so this is what we did. So now, SVP, Public Policy and Stakeholder Engagement. She's a board chair and director. She's a proud former public servant. She's a conference speaker and panelist, right? Social impact, super connector. And then sports nut, go dogs. So this is where you give me that little nugget, that personality brand, something about you that not everybody needs to even understand. But the people that understand it are going to want to talk about it. And then her profile takes a complete 180 from before. My career has taken me around the world, across time zones and conference tables, sitting next to some of the most influential leaders of our time while having a huge role in shaping the conversation. Right. So now she's an active participant in her own career. Here's where it's taken me. And not just like, oh, I've sat next to these people. I have been part of the conversation and I've shaped it. Right. That is ownership, bragging, right? But again, in service, right? If you're looking for someone who can make policy, you need someone who can shape policy. Then she says she's a former public servant and political staffer, made her foray into the private sector. Here's what she currently does. Then she really wanted to get into like living in both countries and understanding how to navigate like those sensitive kind of cross-border relationships. And then like the social impact piece was really important to her. So she talks about this program that she developed. And on her longer profile, she really gets into what this is, right? Because then that's the show, right? Show me what this initiative is, show me what it's done. And then at the end, I always insist like give people something about you to connect to besides the work. So she lives in Toronto, right? And she says, when I'm not working, she likes to golf, she likes to attend major sporting events, and she likes to travel the world. Ask me where I'm off to next or give me a recommendation, right? So a gentle, like, let's connect, let's start the conversation. It doesn't always have to be about the work. And now it's just a much more well-rounded descriptor of who she is and what she's done. All right, so here's another one, and this isn't just an after, but this is Janice. You'll see 220 characters, right? So Janice, senior manager, customer education. She's a SaaS instructional designer and a technical trainer, curriculum developer, perpetual learner, former lawyer. Interesting, right? An audiobook enthusiast. Again, some more things for people to grab onto. Obviously, like some keywords, just like Jennifer had, like you want to think about like what are the words in my profile that are going to garner someone's attention, right? So if she's working in instructional design, she's going to want to put that in there. She's a trainer. She develops curriculum, right? So those are things that are important for her to get found. And then it's like, oh, but by the way, I also like love to learn. I used to be a lawyer and I'm an audiobook enthusiast. Like those are the more personality fun pieces, right? And then her bio, I wasn't always a software trainer. In a past life, I was a lawyer. Cue gasps and eye rolls. While I may not have loved that career, it provided me with an invaluable skill, breaking down complicated concepts into manageable pieces, right? So again, this is the how you think, right? What's different about her? Tons of software trainers, loads of them. And a lot of them can probably do this. They can break down concepts. But when you understand why she's so good at it, because of being a lawyer and what it allowed her to think about, now you're like, oh, I know who she is. I understand how she thinks. I see the value in what she can deliver. Right then, in my current role, leading customer education, my main focus is on equipping clients with technical skills and confidence. Here's how I do that. I spearheaded the creation of a new curriculum and an LMS with the customer in mind, right? And then again, here's more about that. This year-long project included, here's the things that I did. Again, there's more on her actual profile because it's like tangible examples. People want to be able to see what are you capable of and what have you done? Give me concrete, tangible examples. And then, of course, when she's not training, I dream of heading to my happy place, Cape Cod, right? Loads of people love Cape Cod, great connection point. Listening to audiobooks, hiking, or doing anything on the water. Again, ask me about audiobook recommendations, but be prepared to take notes, right? That's also like very lovely, very warm, very fun. All right, so how do we even get here? Like, I know a lot of people are like, that's great, and I can see the complete turnaround. How do I do this for myself? Where do I start? All right. Well, I hate to break it to you. There's no formula, right? Because we don't want these to be cookie cutter. Like you can see that, Jennifer and Janice had completely different takes, profiles, etc., because it has to come from them. It has to sound like who they are. So we don't want to be a duplicate of anybody else. You want this to be a very personalized, choose your own adventure experience. And so one way we do that is we release the generic, right? All of these jargony salad terms that we tend to throw in our bios, results oriented, demonstrated success, thrives in a fast paced environment. And then my favorite, seasoned professional. I like to say seasoning is for chicken cutlets or food, right? People are not seasoned. That's just coded language for old or experienced. And instead of you telling me you're seasoned, show me with examples, right? And also, like physically, we could tell I'm seasoned, right? We could tell I've been around the block a few hundred times, right? But I'd rather show you examples of all of the work that I've done or tell you that my first job, we had a fax machine, and now I work on Zoom with, a microphone and a ring light and all this technology. And that's going to give you a better sense of the span of my career without me needing to tell you that I'm seasoned. Right. So think about, again, allowing the audience to be the smart ones, and you don't have to tell them certain things. You can show them the things that matter because you telling someone you're seasoned is irrelevant. You showing them an example of what you've accomplished, very relevant. And then I want you to think about who you're talking to, right? So if you're gunning for a promotion, how do you write your profile and how do you start talking about yourself to your manager in a way that's going to showcase to them, right? Because it's review time, it's going to be review time. How do you highlight what you've done so that they can see that you understand what they're struggling with and that you've solved all these things? If you're looking for a job, it's the same thing. Think about who your target is. And what can you say about your own experience that serves them and their needs, right? What are they struggling with? How are you uniquely positioned to solve these problems? Again, show what you're good at. Examples, metrics, stats if you have them, or testimonials, right? And then demonstrate what it's going to be like to work with you. Because if you are constantly holding back who you are and you're not letting people get to know you and you're not leaning on what's special and amazing about you, you're going to end up in the wrong role and the wrong environment all the time. And again, this doesn't mean you need to share everything, but if you are someone who does not thrive in a fast-paced environment or, never wants to lead a meeting, like that needs to be clear that you're the person that's going to be the thoughtful person in the back, maybe taking notes, or you're the person that is a more methodical worker. And, I think a lot of times we forget that we need to own the elephant in the room. Say the thing that you've been told is a negative about whatever and turn it into your positive, right? I once had a very senior leader who was all the way up, very high, like managing director of a large bank. And he kept saying that his boss kept telling him, I need you to be more this, I need you to be more that. And I was like, why? You've already ascended to almost the highest ladder there is. You're well respected. You have thousands of people under you who love working for you. You don't need to be this person. You need to be you. So I want us to all think about owning the way that we work, the person that we are, and leaning on that as a strength and not a weakness. Okay, so some quick, as we kind of come to the end here, components to a strong bio, right? Open with your why, show me how you think, and of course, we're going to infuse some personality. So here's a couple ways you can do that. Open with your why. My life has been marked by a series of firsts. first generation college bound Latina, youngest female instructor at the Princeton Review, youngest Coro Fellow, one of two students from the US on the NCME task force on educational measurement and civil rights. Perhaps all these firsts are why I developed a love of numbers. This lifelong passion for numbers, plus a dedication to educational equity, have shaped my career in profound ways, right? So, her why. I did all of these things. I have all of these firsts, and like the tying into the numbers and the obsession with numbers, like that's super interesting. And of course, it's a way to talk about how impressive this person is, but we like leave that behind and then we get into numbers. Here's what I do. Here's the importance. Okay. How do you think? Right. Growing up a latchkey kid, I had to learn to figure out just about everything. I credit this with my ability to see the big picture and spot trends before they impact the organizations I work for. I've never met a process I couldn't improve upon or an idea that I didn't want to investigate. Now, if you don't know what a latchkey kid is, you might ask the question or you can Google it. If you do, and you realize, oh, like this person went home from school every day to an empty house and was on their own, of course, now they're like industrious and they can figure things out. Right. So even though the rest of this is not groundbreaking, right? Okay, she can spot trends and she can improve processes. The how you think piece, why can she do that? That's the interesting thing. And that's the thing that gets you to stand out. And then lastly, let's talk about like how do we infuse some personality at the end of our bios? What I like, anything in Central Park, the arts, the Steelers, Vermont all year round, traveling, skiing, trying to hit a golf ball, and prowling around the Met. What I don't like, spiders. Let's talk about communicating clearly, being fearless, achieving your goals, and moving to the next level, right? So a very different way, kind of again, like a choose your own adventure, right? And you've got the examples also from Janice and Jennifer. Again, lots of ways to infuse personality. It's just what feels good to you. What do you want people to know? Some people might say, it's too much, it's too long of a list. Pick one or two. It doesn't need to be a ton. All right. So, how do you get started? A couple prompts or five. I have found one of these five prompts will get almost anybody going. And I want you to pick the one that instantly sticks out to you. Don't make it about work. So just see where it takes you, right? So the ever since I can remember, that could be I've been interested in conversations, or I've loved numbers, or I've been able to visualize things, or I've been, the person who planned all the parties. Whatever it is, think about the thing that, instantly gets you to at least start writing about yourself. And then eventually, I promise you, you will connect the dots because you will realize, oh my God, my whole life I have been thinking this way or doing this thing or showing up in a way that I still do now in my job. And now I'm just going to connect those dots, right? So I promise you one of these five will get you going. It doesn't mean you need to open your bio eventually with one of these things, but it's a really good way, again, to just get started. And some ways to think about this, like what should this kind of longer bio profile look like? Again, choose your own adventure, but you've got sort of what's that opener? What is that compelling sentence or two sentences that is going to differentiate you from everybody else and get you to stand out? Then how do you talk about, again, your like value proposition? Like, what do you bring to the table? Why do you do what you do? And then you kind of get into that background. Like, what's your experience? The relevant experience, right? You don't need everything. Everything we've ever done is not relevant. For a lot of us, we've had roles and jobs and things we've done that we never want to do again. You don't have to talk about them, right? This is all about like positioning you for what's next based on where you've been. We don't have to look back. So, how do you think about setting yourself up for what you want versus just telling the story of where you've been? And then, of course, expertise and sort of metrics, any stats, things like that. Give me some fun stuff. Awards doesn't have to be professional awards. It could be like you've run 9 marathons. It could be you were voted number one grandma. Whatever it is, something fun. And then like that gentle call to action at the end. What do you want people to do? Are you looking for connection? Are you looking for a job? Are you looking for clients? Are you whatever it is, think about how do you ask people to get in touch with you in some way that feels genuine and soft. And then I'm just going to remind you that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And especially in business, I want all of us to be able to be our best selves because you truly cannot do your best work if you don't feel comfortable doing what you're doing and in the environment that you're working. And if you can show up as yourself, you will knock it out of the park, I promise. And lastly, I do have like a really quick little like 9 point checklist, small tweaks that you can make to your current bio and or what you can kind of implement once you've kind of written a new version, right? So thinking about all these small tips, whether it's making it skimmable, putting in bullets, right? We want to just give you the smallest little tweaks that you can make because I know that anything bigger, nobody does it. So I promise you, these are very bite size. And you can just take a photo of that QR code and it should load for you. And then, of course, I always love hearing from anyone. So if you have any questions, you want to reach out to me, I hang out a lot on LinkedIn, obviously. Please feel free to connect with me. If you're an Instagram person, I'm there too. You can email me. If you go to my website, I have a newsletter that goes out every 2 weeks that I promise you is not your typical newsletter. And I really hope that this was valuable for you. If you make over your bio, I would love to see it. And of course, if you need additional support or help or anything, I'm your girl, and please reach out.